Good Friday afternoon, morning, whatever it is. Hello, hello, hello. It is the American Awakening Squad coming to you from around the country and bringing you some signs of life today. It's a beautiful day where we are here in the greater Boston area. We're finally feeling some real spring, right? Love it. Let's.
What's real spring to you guys? 47 degrees?
We're actually hitting the high 60s today, brother.
That's right.
Ooh, high 60s. That's still dead of winter in Hawaii. That means a blizzard just came through if it's 68.
We're happy. We're happy. Don't try to cramp our happiness, man. Don't smash our joy.
Okay, deal.
And we're going to try to bring that spirit of spring to everybody around the country, around the world. Everybody who's out there from India, the Philippines, Nigeria, and elsewhere. We're looking forward to having you on this show today with us. This great ride, and starting us on this great ride is our house worship leader, Josh Jacob. What do you have for us, Josh?
How you doing, John? Yep. There's one that I picked this morning. So it's from Hillsong. Hope you like it. Standing here in your presence, in a grace so relentless, I am won by perfect love, wrapped within the arms of heaven, in a peace that lasts forever, sinking deep in mercy. See, I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace. Oh, my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love. When I'm lost, you pursue me. Lift my head to see your glory, Lord of all. So beautiful. Hearing you, I find shelter, captivated by the splendor of your face. My secret place, I'm wide awake, draw him closer by grace. Oh, my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, lean into your love. Oh, your love. Washing over me, your face is all I see. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. Your love so deep, it's washing over me. Your face is all I see. Oh, my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. Your love so deep is washing over me. Your this is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry, to know you all my life.
That's good, Josh.
Sinking deep.
Appreciate that. We're having some technical difficulties, giving us a little bit of a scratching thing, Josh. But as Jeff Bethke pointed out, just made it sound like we're doing like the oldie days. And
yeah, you were just on vinyl. So good.
made it like authentic, like it was from the 30s or something.
Yeah, what was the very first thing on the phonograph or whatever? Mary had a little lamb, did that vibe. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. Hey, Joel Searby, what do you have for us today, friend?
Hey guys, good to see you and hear you all, talk to you all with our daily dose today. What I try to do every day is just bring a little hope and light and life and maybe something to think about in your soul and in your spirit. And today I want to talk about the idea of satisfaction. And I'm not talking about the song. You're not going to get me to sing the song. Just can't get no satisfaction. No, I'm talking about the idea of our souls being satisfied. And Psalm 63, David says, "My soul will be satisfied with the richest of foods." I've been thinking today about what it means to be satisfied. And David specifically points to this idea of food, because I think he knows, as we know, that there is a certain sense of satisfaction, of goodness, of richness that comes with, for example, a great meal, or a beautiful sunset, or great time with a family, or creating something. There's all kinds of different ways where we can feel satisfaction that is a good kind of satisfaction, a wholesome kind of satisfaction. And there's also a lot of ways that we can seek satisfaction, that place in our soul that kind of feels right, where it feels like something right now is right in me. That's the satisfaction that David's talking about, is our soul seeks it in God, but we also seek it in a lot of other ways and a lot of other things. And I know that in my life, I've gotten into a lot of trouble trying to satisfy my soul with things that will never satisfy my soul. And so my encouragement for us today is, as we seek that kind of satisfaction, it's okay to seek it. In fact, I would say seek it even harder. Go after it even more, because the real kind of soul satisfaction that we want, that we long for, is the kind that we can find only in God. And, I'll be honest, I'm not sure that that's something that we can like live in that every day, all day. I've never experienced that, but I know that I've had glimpses of that in my life, where I just know that I know that I know that God loves me, that he's got a purpose for my life, that he's going to fulfill that purpose in my life, even in spite of the things that I do. And when you kind of know that, and when you're really able to sit in that satisfaction that God has got you, God loves you, God is going to do in you and through you what he purposes, there is a really deep peace that comes with that. So seek the satisfaction of our souls that comes from God. Experience that satisfaction, especially in this time, in all the little gifts that God gives you. Those are real things. When God gives you those little gifts of satisfaction, those are glimpses of him. And let's try to run away from the things that we know will never satisfy our souls, and really run after God today. That's your daily dose. Back to you, John.
Can't argue with that. Hard to apply sometimes, but it's so darn true. Marissa, you got any thoughts on that before we turn it over to Jeff?
No, Lord, let that be my prayer. Lord, satisfy me. Satisfy me, Lord.
That kind of simplifies it and breaks it down, huh?
It's real. I mean, what are you going to do, right? You're going to spend your life going crazy because you're chasing after something you don't have. You don't even know how to get it. Peace. Lord, satisfy me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That breaks it down. I appreciate that, Marissa. Thank you. Jeff, how is it in Hawaii? I think you got a birthday there in the household today. Is that right?
Yes, our oldest is turning 6 today, so we'll go. We're going surfing after this. All the fun stuff. Going and hanging out, chilling. Got cakes and food all on deck. It's gonna be fun. A quarantine birthday, so that'll be interesting. But thankfully, here still you can go outside, go to the beaches, as long as you're working out. So surfing.
Yeah, we all know that all those 6-year-old birthdays go surfing and all the good stuff.
Right?
All of us everywhere around the world. We know exactly.
No, it's a very classic. She's our oldest is classic Hawaii, like love. Like it was a debate between, do you want to go spearfishing or surfing in the morning? That's what she got to choose between, or what she asked to choose between. And then dinner tonight, we can let the kids pick for their birthdays. And I think she picked poke, which if you know is basically raw tuna with rice, sushi, and then she wanted steak too. So that's where we're gonna have all that, which will be fun. I know. She's like, she's got
Jeff's house.
Exactly.
That's
so it'll be an interesting
6-year-old.
Yeah, Alyssa's not too stoked because Alyssa doesn't love the raw fish or sushi and all that. So yeah, she's like, she can sacrifice for one day. Something to chew on for today. Now, this is a fun study, simple. This one can be up for misinterpretation, so I want to make sure that we hear what we're saying with this one. But this is an interesting study done by, I don't know if I can pronounce his name, Donald Reidelheimer or Reidelmeyer, something like that. He's basically the head of this college health and science center in Toronto that kind of is a psychologist that studies certain human behaviors and things. And what he studied was fascinating when he studied Academy Award-winning actors and actresses, or just kind of anyone who's even nominated in those categories. And he found a really funky correlation you wouldn't expect, but that's that Academy Award winners, looking back on their lives, live like 5 to 7 years longer on average than people who are only nominated. Now, he then kind of took that little breadcrumb to then go into something more meaningful, but that was kind of the thing that sparked that it was a fascinating, like, oh, there shouldn't be any correlation there of just if you win, you live longer. But what he basically found out is, once he went down the rabbit hole, is that we are made for meaning. Now, it's not saying when you're not nominated, or when you're only nominated, you don't have meaning, etc. That's what I'm saying. It's up for misinterpretation. But what he did find is that basically he's like, man, there's something about when your life does have meaning and you feel like you had an impact, when you feel like you actually achieved certain things you were hoping to achieve, it does something to your mental health. It does something to the stability of your mind, your emotions, and all these different things that actually allows for a longevity of life that you kind of can't plan for. And he goes in that, I think there's something in there that I want you guys to chew on for today, that not that you need to go to acting class, try to get an Academy Award, because at some level, if you do that wrong, it's the opposite, right? If you live for achievement, if you live for those benchmarks, which that's what I'm saying is the misinterpretation, not what it's for. But can you say that your life is chasing meaning? And I think especially as followers of Jesus, we find that our meaning is actually found not in our performance, but it's in who we are. It's in the fact that we are loved by the creator of the universe, and that is the greatest thing. And then when you find meaning in that and how he anchors us and who he says you are, then actually performance and achievement and all these other things kind of fall by the wayside, because the greatest performance wasn't even done by you. It was done by Jesus 2,000 years ago. And that's the impact. And that's the thing that gives you the security, the blessing, and I think the longevity and the mental health we're all looking for. So something to chew on, a little more unique one for today, but I thought it was interesting to bring to the table.
I guess that is unique. Wow. And who performed the study, or who did the first analysis, Jeff? Do you remember?
It was like Donald Reidelheimer, and he just heads up this kind of this health and science psychology center in Toronto. So fascinating.
What's your take on that, Marissa, as a film buff?
Well, first of all, I think we all know that there have been some fantastic people nominated that have never won. So all of you out there that are clearly watching Signs of Life, just know this is. And
there's probably some that live longer than the winners.
I believe that. But that whole when you were talking, Jeff, I just started thinking about that verse from the Word. Basically, if you're dreams, deferred, if you're chasing stuff that you kind of never realize how that can make the heart sick. But that, again, if we're chasing after God, who has promised to never leave us, forsake us, always be with us, wanting to share.
Hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Yes. Wanting to share himself with us, that, you chase that your whole life, you can find some satisfaction, you can find some peace. And you can rest well.
Well, I love the second part of that verse, which is, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life, right? And that your ultimate longings, when they're met, actually bring a really, stability and anchor and something that you can feed on. And then we know that the earthly things of that are still futile, but God gives us that ultimate tree of life that we see in the garden that shows back up in the, in the end.
Yeah, life. Give it to me, Lord. I want life, not a life of stress. Pursue some stuff.
I want to speak to the tangible real quick, because John likes to always say, like, "Oh, hard to apply, yet hard to live out," which is true, right?
He's like, but what does that mean? I'll literally go on like 15-minute rants about something that interests me, and then Alyssa just goes, "But what does that actually mean? Or are we not sure there, or is that actually practical at any level?
I think all of us took away from your little bit there that we're supposed to all win Oscars. But
Exactly.
example, I mean, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm long on the theorizing, and I'm very short on but this is what that actually means.
No, but seriously, I mean, here's one thing that I do. If anybody out there cares, is you really do get glimpses of God in the little bits of satisfaction and joy and purpose. So like, recognize that if a sunrise is not just a sunrise when you realize that there's like a God behind that who created it, and you can just sit in a minute and say, wow, that's incredible. Or if you are creative, or like you make something, after you make it, don't just like set it down and walk away. Sit there and admire it for a minute. Be like, man, I made that, and God channeled his creativity through me. And that's like a little taste. And so you eat a great meal, man, eat that great meal. Marissa, I know you can eat a great meal. Like those little things.
Follow us on Instagram if you want good meal pictures.
That's right. That's right. But those are glimpses of God. I really believe that he shows up in the everyday things that we can say like, oh, that's what he's pointing to when he's talking about that.
That's good.
That's a great discipline, right? Like slowing down to like savor the beauty that does come your way, as opposed to like, wishing for something that, is not going to come your way, because beauty's there. Mm-hmm. Can you see it,
Yeah, that is definitely the truest of all exercises for all of us, because as we keep talking over time back and forth to each other, we keep coming back to God is only in the day you're in, and he's not in the God is not to be experienced in the future, because the future is not where you are right now. That's not to be experienced. You're not supposed to be trying to go back in the past and figure that out, regrets or sorting or whatever. It's you got today. It's reminiscent of to me of Ecclesiastes, which isn't everybody's cup of tea, but everybody's not wired to that sort of melancholy sort of thing, but works for me. And the idea that what do you have? Remember the Creator in the days of your youth. You've got the day that you got, the labors you have, right? And there's something, that may not sort of, again, strike everybody's fancy. It may be a little sort of melancholy or hard to swallow for people. But I think at bottom, it's in line with what we're saying here, which is, hey, live in the day you got. It's what you have. Work hard, have a good, solid lunch midway through your hard work day. Go back to the afternoon. Oh, thanks for the apple sign there. Yeah, nice, Joel. That's almost as bad as my mushed up finger. Your apple core. But for those on podcast, you won't understand that. But Pastor Joel flashed us a half-eaten apple. I think is that what we got there, Joel? Yeah. Thanks. That's good. That's nice. Show and tell. And so. You got the day you got, and you got the work you got the meal you've got, and then there's something of this sort of, that sort of essence of what has been described as experiencing the cool of the evening after a long day of labor, right? You say, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. I got my day. I did what I was, let me just be okay in that. And then that stays away from this kind of that longing that you're talking about, Jeff, the hope that you can't reach, or the dream deferred is like what? A raise in the sun. Something which like, oh, I'm dreaming for that. I'm dreaming for that. Well, dream about the thing, that you can actually be part of achieving the beauty that God's doing in your day right now. So
that's good wisdom. That's good. That's good. And I think are we moving on to wow? So that's happening now.
Sure, if that seems right to me.
Just trying to keep it moving.
I think so. I think Calvin, you in that pink are screaming for the time to talk now. So love
That's
it.
Exactly right.
Hey, I'm good listening. You guys are dropping some wisdom. It's good to just listen with you guys. Yeah. So hey, good morning. What is going on to our friends in the U.S. and to the friends all around the world? We see you. We love you. It's awesome to be with you guys today. And like every show, we just want to bring you a few headlines of what is going on out in the world. So, quick update. As of today, in 24 U.S. states, the number of new coronavirus cases reported each day is generally going down. Great news. But in 17 states, the number is holding steady, and in 9 states, the number of new cases are actually still rising. So all of this is according to an analysis of data from Johns Hopkins University. Also, the House of Representatives is voting on what could be 2 historic measures today: a $3 trillion COVID-19 aid package and rules to allow lawmakers to vote remotely during the pandemic. So the aid package legislation, which allocates funding for state and local governments, coronavirus testing, and a new round of direct payments to Americans, would stand as the largest relief package in U.S. history. The move to allow remote voting comes after weeks of talks about allowing committees to conduct business virtually and members to vote safely during the pandemic. It would stand as one of the most significant rule changes the House has implemented in recent history. But neither measure is a bipartisan agreement, and both are pretty highly contested along party lines. Also, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention published 6 one-page decision trees on Thursday aimed at helping businesses, communities, schools, camps, daycares, and mass transit decide whether it's safe to reopen. The decision trees are posted on the CDC's website if you want to check it out. And while they do not provide any detailed advice on whether or when it would be safe for schools or businesses to open, they do provide step-by-step guidance on questions to ask before making any big decisions. Lastly, a bipartisan group of members of Congress is proposing a compensation fund for essential workers modeled after the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund. So the Pandemic Heroes Compensation Act would create a compensation fund for workers and the families of workers deemed essential during the coronavirus pandemic, who have continued to leave their homes for work, even as stay-at-home orders have forced most Americans to work remotely. So Carolyn Maloney, a Democratic rep from New York, said on September 11th, it was the firefighters and officers who ran into the burning buildings to save lives. Today, it's the hospital workers, nurses, doctors, EMS, janitorial staff, pharmacists, technicians, and all essential workers. We owe them more than applause. So to all you guys on the front lines, we thank you, we love you, we appreciate you. And yeah, there you have it. A few headlines of what is going on out there. And now I'm going to pass the ball back over to Marissa to introduce our discussion topic of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Calvin. Again, with those stories, we see our leaders, everybody, from everybody up on top to those of us who are just trying to make it through every day. Everybody's just trying to figure out how to care for one another, how to care for our country, how to care for our elders, how to care for those on the front lines. We're trying to figure it out. And it's sad that even though it seems like we found finally a common enemy, and a lot of times with a common enemy, people can rally together. Even with that, it seems like we're still encumbered by all the things that have been working to divide us. But, in light of what we've been talking about these past few days, and in light of that point of where we're still at, what I wanted to do today was I wanted to read a segment of JK's upcoming book, American Awakening, 8 Principles to Restore the Soul of America. Is dropping in July. We're all very excited about that. There's a lot of gems in there. And I want to read a section today that I think is really beautiful. It's going to encompass a lot, and we can chew on that. So, all right, here we go. In this American moment of despair, division, and death, now from despair and coronavirus, we as a nation and people are in peril. And if you look around carefully, you'll find people in your state in peril, people in your city or town in peril, and in all likelihood, people in your closest community of friends and loved ones in peril. You may find yourself or your family in peril already, or, because we're all linked together, likely to be in some peril soon. As we face these times, we're not enemies, we're friends. We're not just Black or white or Latino or Asian, we're Americans. We're not just right or left, we're Americans. We're not just straight or gay, we are Americans. We're not just male or female, academically smart, mechanically brilliant, or developmentally challenged, rich or poor, we're all Americans. We're not just Republican, Democrat, Green, Libertarian, or Independent, red state, blue state, or purple state. Christian, Muslim, Jew, we are all Americans. We all share relationships with one another that transcend the people categories we're placed in. We are together made in the image of God and are brothers and sisters who need one another. Our contribution to this story doesn't have to be epic. It doesn't have to be remarkable or insightful. But I believe nearly any of us can change a story, affect a community, influence a town or city, and ultimately maybe even save a state or nation in peril. It will take courage, as it always does. All the greatest stories require courage from us, and the greater the story, the more courage required. I love that. I loved it before Corona. I love it now in the season of Corona. It's important for people to discover it. And, this week we've been talking about the importance of finding the courage to change, finding the courage to rise up into who you can be. Again, now, how do we find the courage to care for one another in whatever ways we can, no matter what? My question, first of all, after JK, to feel those words come to life.
Good.
Yay, how does it feel? But also, who have you come across? Because you mentioned so many great people in this book that you have that you've modeled some parts of your life after, people who you've looked at with extremely high regard. Who are some folks who inspired that and who you've looked to who can show us the way?
Well, first of all, thank you for reading it, Marissa. I just say, everybody out there, I'm not part of the run of show. Marissa's in charge of that. So I didn't say, hey, read my book.
It's all me. That's right.
So I mean, real for real, it's you guys in first instance, daily, Calvin worked tirelessly with me on that. And, Marissa is an inspiration day in, day out, and some other wonderful, meaningful spiritual advisors and contributors to my life, amongst other folks in this great team. The epic ones I think about all the time, for me personally, are I think a ton about Dr. King. I think a ton about Abraham Lincoln. I think about people that could see through the eyes of God that all of us are God's children as Americans. I mean, of course, all God's children all around the world too, everybody, but coming from an American perspective in a distinctly American idiom, they saw the transcendent spiritual reality of what was real. And the real thing is that we're all children of God, and we're all participating in this remarkable, epic, transcendent, forever story. And whatever the challenges of the day, Lincoln pre-Civil War, and into his death, or King in a Birmingham prison, and being beat upon by even people of faith who are telling him to stand down, and then ultimately to his death at 39. These guys saw that there's a bigger story going on, and they were taking us to that bigger story. And then the second order of that is that they saw that that's the big story for everybody around the world. That they knew that that's the story of all human beings, but they also knew that in the American storyline, the narrative, our charter, the thing that we are playing for, that all are created equal, that it's right there. I mean, we haven't done it a lot, but nevertheless, that's our target. And so they were always calling us to something outside of the pain of the moment, to something bigger. So those are my heroes.
I love that. Guys, who have you looked to? I mean, again, these are they're not just sort of lofty ideas. We're and I'm gonna say this, it might sound bold, but I think everybody who is right now in this moment rising up to try to fill a space where they're declaring what they believe God is saying in terms of like, stop with the division, stop with the fighting, stop with the being, sort of led astray by, chasing things that are not going to bring you satisfaction or peace, or, things that aren't eternal. I think we come in the lineage of folks who have modeled this kind of thing for us before. That's how we can look to it, and we can believe that we can find it again. Joel, I know you've worked in some really contentious political spaces, but you're a man of peace. Who have you seen model these kinds of things well, and who's inspired you in this way?
Yeah, when I think about American political kind of atmosphere, I also think of Lincoln probably in a different way than John. Lincoln had a very complicated history. He was not a perfect man. I think he made a lot of mistakes like all of us do. But one thing he did that was really interesting was bring people who very much were his rivals, to borrow Doris Kearns Goodwin's book title, Team of Rivals, and brought them around him on purpose. Who does that? I mean, in political worlds today, no one does that. I mean, that especially at the presidential level. And so there's something about not just being willing to interact with people who aren't like you, but actually seeking them out and saying, I'm going to keep seeking you out because I think there's something about sticking together that's really valuable. So that's been a hero to me. And then I would just say my grandfather, he used to get accused of, as grandma would say, bringing home strays. And I mean, even throughout my whole life, I've heard so many stories of grandpa just loving on people who are kind of broken and destitute and just needed somebody to say, God loves you. I love you. What can I do for you? And, so from the lofty down to the like super simple, just who can I help today?
I love that. No, it's good. I mean, and again, I think we need to see the grassroots people on the ground who are just loving people. We need to see that, because if you don't see that at its base, you're never going to get to any sort of sacrificial level where it's beyond what you can even imagine. And also, the everyday heroism, the loving one another, it happens every day, people. It happens with us on the streets, loving one another. That's way more prolific than the few folks that you can pick out through history.
Completely agree. Absolutely. Heroes are heroes for a reason, but yeah, we talked about it. At least I talked about it yesterday, where I think that we were all trying to ground the principles we were talking about yesterday in the everyday and the now. The platoons of virtue. It's the mother that's laboring on tirelessly in these days of educating their kids while being online for their Zoom calls for the office, while on and on and on and on. I mean, that the platoons of virtue, human beings doing what they got to do. It's always closest to the ground. It's always right there. It's not like in the lofty spaces. And it so happens that King made it to a lofty space because he did it in the spaces he was supposed to over time. And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Hey, he's our leader."
That's a good word right there, JK.
Yep, that's
a good word. You bloom where you're planted, and let God decide where to take you.
We're back to daylilies. We're back to the daylilies.
Yes.
Boom.
That's right. That's good. That's good. Calvin, were you about to shout something out?
Me? Hey, but I'll jump in. I think I'll probably stick with the idea of courage. Again, this idea of those who have come before us to stand, plant the flag of radical togetherness, a different way of looking at us and who we can be together and what it really means to care for one another. I mean, again, John, I'm absolutely with you. We come in the lineage of Gandhi, Lincoln, King, right? I would even go back further. I love Wilberforce to the point where it's a significant possibility that my first child will be named Wilberforce, nicknamed Wilby. But again, if you don't know Wilberforce, he's the
Don't
first
do
guy.
that to your child.
I know. Lord have grace and mercy on us all, for him. But yeah, and if you don't know the story of Wilberforce, please look him up. But yeah, I think there are so many people, even to go further, even those of Scripture who called us into something new, called us together into something new, that had the courage to stand in that gap, because there was always such a gap between, Marissa and I, we actually talked about this the other day, but how unnatural it is for us to actually care for one another to the point of wanting this idea of togetherness. And so I think there are those who have come before us, and again, from varying degrees and capacities, all the way from a King and a Gandhi or King and Mandela to John, you mentioned that single mom, who's just grinding to keep her family together. But those are people who have the courage to sometimes stand even alone and stand in that gap and link arms with those on both sides of them.
Well, that is a great final word on this. We could go all day on this topic. I know, talking about our heroes and talking about the heroes amongst us, etc. But we've got Dan and Steve waiting to go. And normally I might just sort of skip the movie line of the day because in the interest of time, but this one is so on point, right? So on point. So Jeff, hit us with it.
Yes, great choice, Marissa. You went with, I have conflicted feelings about Lord of the Rings because it tends to be put in conversations against Narnia, and I'm Team Narnia all day, Lewis and Tolkien. But
Start that war.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not mutually exclusive, in my opinion. They're just ranked 1 and 2. That's all. They're both phenomenal.
Them fighting words, Jeff.
No, Lord of the Rings is. I will actually say I think Lord of the Rings is a lot thicker and more complex and layered when it comes to imagery, metaphors, and things that we can kind of take from life. And it's just so deep. You go into Silmarillion and all that stuff. But anyways, with that being said, yes, great lines. Let's show it. Lord of the Rings.
To do it. Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Good. My left ear enjoyed that one. Did you guys only have that coming through one ear?
Well, that was good.
Oh, no,
No?
I've heard it both ears. Yeah.
Oh, it must have been interesting. But I was going to say, I love that. That's so good, though. Powerful.
Even the smallest person.
That's
All
right.
right.
And you know
And
what?
then
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marissa, please.
I was going to say, and what makes it so much more like, whoo, is I didn't realize how tall she is.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
She's leaning down. You're like, whoo, yeah, all right.
Either she's tall or Frodo's just a little guy.
Or he's a hobbit.
Whatever it is.
There's the Hobbit factor going on there, yeah.
Yes.
But his honesty to say that I'm afraid to do it.
That's right.
Totally.
I actually missed that the first time watching that. The first dozen times watching that scene. But
It makes a lot in those movies when they're 9 hours.
I know. There's a lot there.
Well, thank you, everybody. Let's take it to Dan and Nashville and Florida and the music. Here we go, Dan.
Well, hello. Good to be with you all. Hope all you can hear me okay. My internet's been a little weird today, but that's okay. It was nice to see that movie clip. I have to confess that Cate Blanchett has long been my celebrity crush. So, pretty much anything she says, I will adhere to as good canon. It is great to be with you all. I'm so excited about our guest today. Every time we have a musical guest on, I'm completely blown away that they're willing to be on the show and spend some time with me. But today, Stephen Deloupolous is with us, and I first met Stephen. Stephen is most people know him best through the band Burlap to Cashmere, who are just were all of the above, just a phenomenal group of musicians. The first time I met Stephen was in Nashville, and he ran up to me one day. This is back in, I believe, 1998, and there was this guy just running towards me, and he stopped me, and he said something that I think the lyric was, he said, "Blessed are the shallow, depth they'll never find. What were you thinking?" Like, it was like this immediate. That was my first introduction to Stephen Deloupolous, and I think I just my heart just went out to him, and I was so grateful to meet him. He's always been encouraging to me. And this band, we brought Burlap to Cashmere on the road with us many times throughout the years, and just every night they would get up on stage and play, and I would sweat because they were so good, so dynamic, so powerful. And I would be like, well, we can't phone it in tonight, guys. We're really going to have to step it up because these guys are making it hard for us on stage every night because they were so good. So Stephen Deloupolous, not only with the band, but has put out some just really incredible solo projects. His lyrical style, his writing is just incredibly poetic, very vivid. If you've not had a chance to check out Stephen Deloupolous or Burlap to Cashmere, you should do it. Some of my favorite music. And honestly, I could gush all day about this, but I'm just grateful to have you on the show with us, Stephen. How are you today?
Doing great, Dan. It's so great to see you, and a real pleasure to be on the show. I was listening backstage, and really cool topics. Dan, what were you thinking with that line? I came running to you because I was listening to that record, both your records at the time, all day and night. And when I finally got to meet you, I was like, oh my God, that's the guy who wrote that song. So I ran up to you, and of course, blessed are the shallow depth they'll never find. It's just, I think you're what drove me to run up to you and act like a crazy fan. And I still am a crazy fan. I've been a fan of yours for way too long, and I'm thrilled to see it.
Man, well, we share that in common. There's definitely a mutual admiration here. Steve, one of the things that I've loved, and it's been difficult because one of my favorite songs that you guys ever wrote was called Eileen's Song, and I know the trapping of that is that it is about an old girlfriend, and so I can see how the tension is there. But every night you guys would play that song, and even now when I put it on the record, like it transports me somewhere. It takes me somewhere. It's such a beautiful piece of music. Obviously, you have bested that song many times over in recent years with songs that you've written. Love Reclaims the Atmosphere. Some of those tunes that you have put together are just stunning. So what I'd love to do is give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days and play us a song.
Great. Okay, cool. I hope you don't mind my shirt on the air conditioner in the back of me, but the air condition looked like an air conditioner, so I thought maybe I'd look a little cooler. And of course, my Taylor guitar case is behind me, so it looks like I've been, writing viciously day and night, which is not true. But so I have been writing a lot of tunes. I'll play a song off a Straight Jacket that I really like. A friend, I guess a fan, did a cover of this recently and did it real slow. And I thought it was really cool. And I started hearing it in my head over again. And I had this song I wrote, I feel like 14 years ago or so. It's a song called She Held My Hand. It goes like this. Made a deal with the devil, said he'd make me famous, said he'd make me rich enough to buy my way to heaven. Sirens in my head, and spiders on the ceiling. He was battered on the floor, left for dead. Danger on the TV, the sky fell on his head. I met her at a show, her hand slipped through her hair. She listened to my story, said I heard all about you. Well, it seemed she was sincere, but the conversation fled. Spoke through the prophets, crucified for our salvation. He suffered and was buried, and on the third day he rose born again. She held my hand. Wrinkles off of thinking, old and weak I've become. The saint became a poet, but that poet wants to fly. So show me the kingdom where the angels come undone as they march into that rainbow river sky. Heal the wounded singer, now he's on his way. They were dancing to the music in the shadow of the season. We tangoed through the sacrifice, climbed the virgin hill, walked straight up to the sunrise, like we never had a reason. We released the blood upon the present land. She held my hand. Disappear in glory, disappear the violence, disappear that deal I made, return it to its silence. Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good.
Wow.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Incredible.
So, Stephen, you've done that song is incredible. That's from your Straight Jacket, one of your solo projects, Straight
Yes.
Jacket, right?
Yeah.
So gorgeous.
Thank you.
What is it like for you? You do a lot of collaborating with your cousin Johnny, a lot of the Burlap to Cashmere, stuff like that. When you guys, what feels most different about when you're working on a solo project and you're writing for your own stuff apart from that collaboration? What do you enjoy more, or what do you feel is the where your heart pounds a little bit harder when you're making those records?
Yeah, it tends to change. I mean, when I want to play rock and roll in Greek time meters, is really when I'm writing for Johnny. When I want to think big and kind of hear a band sound, I'll write. I'll present a song to my cousin, and it really is those different time signatures. I hear it more dramatic. I hear more of like a theater, like a play. Even though my solo stuff is like that too, because I'm from a musical theater background. But when I hear Johnny playing, I hear his guitar, I hear his arrangements. I mean, he really understands what I do, and that's mainly because his dad and my dad were sitting together, having barbecues and playing music together, so we understand each other. But it is different. What I prefer, I don't know if I have a preference. I think it's the mood that I'm in. If I know we're going to go on the road, if I know we're going to make a record together with Johnny, I'll write for Johnny, and it becomes instinctual. And if I know I'm going to do something alone, I'll write just for the acoustic guitar. And that's why I left Burlap, was because I had this itch to make an acoustic record. So yeah.
It's so good. Well, I'm so grateful for the music you're putting out there. It's really, I mean, I feel like I could gush. It'd be really unprofessional of me on a show to be like, oh my God, you're my favorite, and to fan out. But you really have. You've been such a huge inspiration, and I'm excited for what comes next for you. Also, would you be willing to play us another song?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Anything in mind, or let's see. I didn't come prepared. In fact, I joked with the panel earlier that I was going to play Donna Summer covers.
It's great. And anything about Kate Blanchett is fine too, apparently.
Oh yeah, I love Kate Blanchett.
Just kidding.
She's a great soccer player. I love.
Oh, good.
Yeah, great soccer player. Okay. Let's see what we got. She was older, lost connection, lost that light above her head in all directions. But she climbed that mountain and cried aloud like a marching drum. Sound your horns and heed your calling. There is work to be done. There is work to be done. We're all just dust to glory. There is work to be done. There is work to be done. Bow your head to the mission story. He couldn't see it, but he heard it. She saw him struggling with the symbols, so she wrote it down. And she looked right through him and saw the shadows of the risen sun. Cast your nets onto the ocean. Oh, there is work to be done. There is work to be done. We are all just dust to glory. There is work to be done. There is work to be done. Bow your head to the mission story. I remember when I borrowed all my healing from a stranger. And I recall when I reached out to the ocean like a soldier, and the burning sun just made me colder. The hollow moon just made me older. So I reached out of my body, and the stars became a story. And I bowed my head in glory as this story ends in one.
Wow, beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
So good. Stephen, so great to have you on. Thanks. Good to see you.
Great to
I'm
see
glad
you,
you're
man.
doing
So
well.
great to see you. You
What
too.
what a strange season we're in, and I'm so glad that
Wow.
you're healthy and you're doing good down there in Florida. So
Thanks.
we look forward to hearing whatever comes out of this this season for you on the creative front. And just thanks for spending some time with us today and sharing your music. It's good stuff. It matters. So we'll kick it back to you, Marissa.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, Stephen. It absolutely does matter. There's work to be done. Thank you guys so much for being with us this week. We've all loved being with you, sharing with you, talking again about courage. Remember, God's with you. He's for you. You are made for this time. You can overcome whatever it is that is trying to set itself against you. And we can all have the courage to rise up and become who we're called to be, even in this moment. Not just despite this moment, but even in this moment. It's supposed to be, we're here. So let's love one another and have the courage to be great neighbors. Have a great day. Those of you who are watching us, have a great weekend. Those of you on pod, be sure to turn in tomorrow. We'll be here, same place, same time. All right. Have a great day, guys. Bye.